Good evening, everyone. My name is Amanda Sargent. I work in outpatient therapy at Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center, and I'm here to talk to you about the importance of self-care, particularly through this uncertain and chaotic time. Now, I want to note that I know COVID, in a lot of opinions, has kind of passed. We're sort of moving into opening up our state again. So I want to note that some of this might be applicable only to COVID, but a lot of it is applicable across our lives in every situation. So as parents, caretakers, and employees, it can be exceptionally hard to balance routine activities during a pandemic. Essential needs, medical concerns, and financial setbacks seem more pressing during this time, but mental health is just as important. COVID-19 has offered unique challenges in how we interact with friends and family, accomplish work tasks, and address new barriers within our own mental health and social connections. Before I get started, I want to take a moment to address some quick housekeeping items. After I finish the presentation, I'll be accepting questions in the Q&A feature in Teams here. Please hold your questions until then, as I might answer them later in the presentation. I highly encourage you to ask questions, though, as someone likely has the same thought or has the same idea ruminating. I also recommend taking some brief notes so that you can realistically apply this information to your own life after this webinar has concluded. Finally, if this presentation brings you any discomfort or you experience a crisis, please call this number on your screen to consult with a professional. First, I'm going to give a little background on myself and my qualifications as well as some background on why why self-care matters. We're going to discuss how to prioritize your own self-care and work it into your schedules when you really have no extra time to give. We'll identify some pressure points or stressors that impact our functioning and how to address the barriers we face when we're trying to implement self-care practices, as well as how to balance multiple roles at once. I've also added in some additional resources and support available to you so that you can continue to get support past this presentation. After this presentation, my hope is that you'll be able to examine your own self-balance and create plans to address some of these concerns in ways that work for you. I also want you to be able to identify new ideas for self-care to easily implement into your daily life, identify the pressure points or stressors and barriers that get in the way of our own self-care, and ask questions regarding implementation of self-care practices. So I want you guys to be able to really open your mind and look for feedback on how you can better implement this in your own lives. So as I stated, my name is Amanda Sargent, and I currently work as an outpatient therapist at Hiawatha Valley in Mental Health Center in Winona, Caledonia, and Wabasha. I have a pretty balanced caseload overall, currently consisting of adults, children, and families. However, I exceptionally love working with children in the birth to 5 population because of the emphasis on family work and development. Prior to my current position, I worked for the agency as a children's mental health case manager, where I helped connect children and their families to local resources and services. Paired with my background as a previous program director for residential facilities, this experience really allowed me to develop a more social work-esque, if you will, to my professional approach, and this translated nicely to my therapeutic approach over time. I graduated with my Master's of Science in Mental Health Counseling from Viterbo University in December of last year. I'm currently working on Minnesota licensure. I'm a firm believer in the mind over matter mentality. Essentially, this means that by forming new positive habits, we can actually establish neural pathways that allow us to be able to access this information, or as we say in clinical terms, do the thing easier. Essentially, the more that you do it, the easier and more solidified it will become in your brain. And that goes for positive thoughts and beliefs as well. So we'll talk about this a little more in some later slides. Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. Have you ever taken electronic to tech support and the first question they ask is, did you turn it off, then turn it back on again? Sometimes this is all we need to fix the problem. Our brain is similar to this. It needs a chance to reboot sometimes, and we need to allow it to recharge in order for it to work properly and most efficiently. The 3 most common things I see on agency referral forms are stress, anxiety, and depression concerns. Nationwide, anxiety and depression are diagnosed in every 1 in 5 people. It's likely you or someone you know have experienced bouts with this trio and might even be experiencing an increase now due to COVID. During this chaotic time, your body may be reacting as though it's experiencing a stressful trauma. You have been expected to adapt quickly and support others in a wide variety of roles, sometimes at the expense of your own mental health. On top of this, I'm pretty sure most of you or some of you are parents, which comes with its own unique challenges and risks for burnout when you're unable to unplug at times. Compassion fatigue has also increased because times are tough. As social beings, humans make emotional connections with each other, and when things are hard for people you care about, you feel it too. Essentially, compassion fatigue is the mental exhaustion and emotional withdrawal experienced by those who care for others over an extended period of time, and it can lead to devastating consequences for your own mental health. That's why taking care of yourself is so critical, because it's not possible to water someone else's plant if you don't fill up your own cup first. By practicing self-care regularly, we can build up our resilience and develop new, positive coping skills that make it a bit easier to make it through. Self-care allows us to put ourselves first, because if we don't, no one will. So to do this, it's important to create a healthy balance between your mind, body, spirit, and emotions to foster this resiliency. To stimulate your mind, you can work on trying to increase your mental agility. You can do this by reading, doing something creative, problem solving, completing puzzles, or challenging yourself to take on a new perspective. Try to think objectively. It's also crucial for our mind to take care of our body. This means regular exercise, participation in activities, and eating nutritious foods. I suggest scheduling in your exercise like an appointment with yourself. You deserve to give yourself uninterrupted time to take care of your temple. It can be as simple as taking your dog for a walk or complicated as an at-home workout routine. Whatever works, just get your body moving. This is important because exercise and certain foods can actually increase the production of happy chemicals, serotonin and dopamine, and even with exercise, endorphins. The goal is to work to align your body and your mind. Think about what foods you're consuming and ultimately what nutrients is it giving to your brain. Is it helpful? Rich in omega-3 fatty acids or vitamin E, which has shown great promise in brain health? Or will it make you feel sluggish, bloated, or bad about yourself emotionally? Your spiritual side also needs some attention. Now, I want to clarify that when I say spiritual, this does not imply religion has to be involved. If that works for you, great. Religion can be a powerful connection to spirituality. Connecting with your spirit, however, simply means being open-minded and reflective. You can do this by relaxing in silence, meditating to a video or recording. Apps like Headspace and Calm have reduced or free pricing during the pandemic. One of my clients, for example, chooses to do meditation each night through Calm to help her fall asleep and shut her mind off. Or you could try journaling. You can also connect with your spirit through prayer or repeating your mantras. In essence, it's trusting in something bigger than yourself and exploring your personal morals and values. Finally, pay attention to your emotions and validate them. All emotions, even negative ones, need to be validated. You feel the way you feel, and it's okay to sit in that for a while, as long as you don't stay trapped in a negative, defeating mindset. Reflect on how you handle and present your emotions in the moment. Are you pretty even keel? Are you short-tempered? What does your body language say about your emotions to others? By bringing our emotions into awareness, we can develop new insight about our own behavior and learn new tools to regulate them. This in turn develops our emotional intelligence and ability to react calmly to stress and anxiety. I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, that's great, Amanda. I recognize I need this balance, but how am I supposed to squeeze it in between all of my other commitments? And the answer to that is, yeah, I hear you. We often have too much to do and too little time. There are many pressures of urgent requests and exhaustive demands that we must meet and attend to. It requires prioritization and planning and determining what is most important to you and for you. Knowing your own needs, recognizing your own pressure points or stressors, and confidently practicing self-care despite these interruptions is what will get you through the day with energy and reserve. We're going to talk about what is and what isn't self-care on the next slide, but I'll give you a hint. Self-care doesn't have to cost money, but it does cost time and commitment. You have to be dedicated to it. Self-care is accepting help from others, but it's not trying to impress others by overextending yourself to please them. It's taking time to rest and relax, not mindlessly zoning out to reality TV shows and sleeping in too late because you stayed up. It can be dressing in a way that makes you feel good, not engaging in retail therapy without considering your budget. It's allowing yourself to have that occasional ice cream cone or second cupcake, but it's not mindless snacking on foods that will make you feel worse mentally and physically. It's about scheduling time for exercise, but not pushing yourself past your limits for the sake of your physical appearance. It can be making social dates with friends or setting aside time to call each other each week, rather than going out all the time at the expense of things important to you. Finally, it's setting healthy boundaries with friends, families, and coworkers, not retreating from social relationships and isolating yourself. So if you notice, out of all those examples, they kind of lie along a spectrum of severity. Self-care really is just, it's about making compromises to prioritize you and doing what is good for you, not necessarily always what you want or that you feel would be great, but what your body really needs or what your mind really needs overall. Identifying your pressure points is a crucial step in building awareness and capacity for self-care. Pressure points are potential stressors that can cause anxiety and stress in our lives. They can be work or school related, such as meeting deadlines, dealing with coworker conflict, threats to job security, feel of inadequacy or failure, and adapting to unanticipated changes that you have no control over. COVID's a perfect example of this. Work or school related pressure points can often spill over into other areas, such as romantic or family relationships, if they're not managed appropriately. However, relationships and families can also be a pressure point. Things like a divorce, separation, intimacy concerns, child rearing, parenting issues, or teenage upheaval in general can affect the dynamic drastically. Think of the family unit like a Swiss watch. In a Swiss watch, each piece has a specific job or role that affects all of the other pieces. They all affect and power each other, which powers the watch as a whole. And when one piece is broken, the watch stops working. The dynamic is off. Families are similar in that one person's functioning can affect all other people in the unit. Pressure points can also be environmentally related. This happens when daily routine is bombarded with changes that are difficult to control or cope with. A prime example of this, again, would be COVID-19 and the adjustments that we've had to make to reduce risk. It also could be something like noise pollution, the weather, relocating to a new job or home, and being forced to adopt a new lifestyle. Pressure points can include real and imagined fear and anxieties. For example, sleeplessness and constant worries are sometimes caused by unrealistic fears and can be affected by our subconscious minds, our belief systems, cultural background, and social activities. Symptoms of mental health disorders or disorders in the family can also be present in this psychological mix. Financial stressors are the most common pressure point on this list. There's a general belief that economic well-being is connected to the success in other life areas, meaning this pressure point, too, can have powerful spillover effects. Lastly, we have health-related pressure points, especially right now. Health-related pressure points can manifest as somatic symptoms, such as headaches, nausea, sleeplessness, digestion concerns, anything that you would normally think in the realm of medical. They can also be sources of stress, from common illnesses like influenza or seasonal allergies to more severe diagnoses like cancer, COVID, or a heart condition. Depending on each individual person, this area can really vary wildly. Now I want you to take a moment and grab a piece of scratch paper and a pen, and draw a circle like this one on your screen with each section attributed to a different letter. These letters represent these different pressure points. Then I want you to give each section a pressure point and imagine the center as 0 and the edge of the center as 10. Where would you make your pressure point? When you're all finished, you're going to draw a line to connect them, and it should look something a little like this when you're finished. So I will just leave that up there, give you a couple minutes to complete that, and then we'll check back in. you just a little longer to finish up. Right. Continue on now. If you're still working, feel free just to finish up and listen as I keep going. So when you're finished, you should have a new shape in the middle that gives a visual as to which areas of your life that you're experiencing the most stress. As you can see, this one's mine here. My two areas are work-related and psychological stress, with environmental not being too far behind in terms of my highest areas. This tells me that I need to focus on these areas to balance better. They require more attention right now. All of these areas are still important, but this one needs our focus. This graphic is dynamic and it should change over time if I address these issues, as well as the mindset that often comes with them. It also allows for some reflection. Think to yourself, what are these causes? Many of mine can be answered due to COVID-related stress. However, I can't really do a lot to change that. So now what? Well, control for what you can, but if you can't change something, we've got to change the way we think about it. We've got to see it from a positive light in any way that we can, even if it's a slight silver lining. As I noted in a previous slide, self-care does not have to cost money. Many things you can do for self-care are free. Going to the nail salon for self-care is great if that's what you like to do, but there are so many other ways to meet this psychological need than to whip out your credit card. Lack of time is one of the most common reasons people struggle with self-care. Between all of one's commitments and expectations, it can be really difficult. Hold on to this thought. In a couple of slides, we will talk about some ways that you can implement self-care into your daily routine without it messing up your schedule too much. Additionally, the needs of others can get in the way of our self-care. I'm sure many of you are parents and have little ones at home that rely on you for their care. Or maybe your team at work relies on you to complete your work so that they can complete theirs. While the needs of others is important to consider, it's okay to ask for help and set boundaries with these individuals, even your kids. Of course, there are always a few exceptions like safety concerns. You might need to intervene then, but use your head. Some days you just don't have the motivation. It's difficult to get started or to keep moving. If it's difficult to keep moving, I challenge you to write out what made you want to start in the first place. What are your goals? How far have you come? How can you get to where you're going? Maybe even create a pump-up playlist to help get moving. This is my personal trick on Monday mornings, and I'm really struggling to get moving for work. And if this doesn't work for me, I often fall back to the idea of, if I'm sick of starting over, I have to have the courage not to quit now. And that often translates over to things like exercise or self-care regimens of my own that I know need my attention. Small steps and all still move you forward. Or maybe, ultimately, you just aren't ready to accept change. Change can be hard. It takes a lot of effort to adapt to. Maybe you feel more comfortable not changing because it's predictable and familiar. Therefore, no surprises. However, in order to grow as people, we must embrace change as it's part of a life. It's naturally just a part of life. Whoops. Maslow's hierarchy of needs plays a role in that it offers a visual representation of the basic psychological and self-fulfillment needs of individuals. Essentially, we work our way up from the bottom towards self-actualization or achieving our full potential at the top. We can't address higher up needs until the lower needs are met. Right now, many of our loved ones, or us, fall within the physiological and safety needs zones. So those are the two, well, technically 4 bottom chunks of the pyramid. Many can't get to self-actualization in order to complete higher level functioning right now, like academics, routine expectations, and emotional processing. They're simply worried about making it through another day. We need to be cognizant of this with our loved ones and what we focus on in our time and conversations with them, but also with ourselves. Essentially, this explains why it's important to let the little things go and justification for cutting yourself a little slack right now. It's really hard to adapt to all of this. During this time, there's such an abundance of grief. Not only loss of life or lifestyle due to COVID, but for many additional reasons. Teachers, for example, have told me previously that March through May is their favorite time of the school year, and it's the reason they continue a career in education because of being able to witness their students' growth. This can also be true for students who are grieving the loss of connections with their classmates or canceled events, too. Think about it. Early in the school year, teachers are working to build rapport with students, building skills, getting to know their true self, handling emotional issues that pop up, really figuring things out about them and how they live their life. March through May refers to the time each school year where the class has begun to become a family. You know each person in and out, how to work with them, how to address barriers, who they interact with, and who they are as a person. With COVID-19, it can feel like students and teachers got robbed of this special time, which may lead to emotional dysregulation issues at home. Again, some of that's watch stuff. Maybe you lost a loved one due to COVID-19 or have not been able to be in contact with loved ones due to increased risk. Maybe you're grieving the loss of your lifestyle pre-COVID, where there was security, structure, and less fear. On top of this, maybe you are isolated socially, or you're worried about people you know that have a toxic home life, knowing that they don't have activities as a daily escape any longer, or that they struggle to keep food on the table. Maybe you're grieving your canceled events like graduation, weddings, or funerals. I don't really know what to say to you other than I hear your pain and you're not alone in this. We're all dealing with it to our own varying extents. You can still work on building meaningful relationships with others during this time through other means, however. Focusing on giving one-on-one attention to your quarantine partners or kids, take this time to explore a new hobby or lost hobby that you weren't able to fit in your schedule before. Use it as an opportunity to prioritize taking care of yourself, physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Check in with yourself. Never in our society have we been given a time where we've been forced to slow down. So sit in that for a while. Appreciate what you have and how eye-opening this experience has been for you and your family. And when this is over, hug your loved ones a little closer and take a look at your personal values. How has this quarantine affected the way that you value your time? Does it make you reconsider your work-life balance or what you consider important in your life? How will you plan to make changes once life officially returns to normal? So as I promised, here's a list of a few ideas to practice self-care in 15 minutes or less. You can fit one of these in on your break at work, in between sessions, or at the start or end of each day without having to adjust your schedule too much. Meditation, so use music or recording. I offered a couple apps earlier like Headspace or Calm that are really great resources for this, but you can also just look something up on YouTube and try different videos that might align with what you're looking for. Go for a walk outside. It's been a little hot lately, but today is a beautiful day for it, nice and cool. Try to fit it in where you can. Oftentimes I try to opt to walk to places like the post office or Quick Trip rather than driving. So it's a nice little way to sneak it in while still getting what I need to do done. Call a friend. Since quarantine started, every Thursday I have one friend that I call at 7 o'clock every week, and it's just a routine check-in with each other, but it's also really brought our friendship closer, and I think that that's really valuable. So I highly recommend that. Do something physical, like I said, going for a walk outside or just stretching, jumping jacks, taking the stairs versus the elevator when you have that option if you're going into the office. One thing I actually do to sneak it in is when I'm waiting for my food to warm up in the microwave, I start doing yoga poses, and it's a good way to fit it in there. You can also lay on the ground and put your feet on the wall, imagining your happy place or something, a memory that makes you really happy and kind of recenters your focus. You can also create a short playlist of uplifting songs and listen to it over and over if you need to, or maybe just once to get you going. You can also journal, doodle, or do something to spark creativity and activate that right side of your brain. If it's still difficult to free up 15 minutes, here are a handful of things that you can do in a minute or two that will help promote mindfulness and reduce tension. You can say your affirmations. That I am smart, I am strong, I am beautiful mantra that I commonly work with young teenage girls is a great example of that. It's just a friendly reminder of where you're at and the things that you're capable of. Recite a favorite verse from scripture, songs, or poetry, whatever really floats your boat. List 3 things that you're grateful for. There's so much research that supports that gratitude actually rewires our brain to be more positive and think more clearly. So I highly recommend doing that every day. I try to do it around my shower time because I know it's something that is consistent every day, so it'll remind me to do it. Breathe deeply, slowly, and with long exhalations. Now this might look a little weird on a video, but I'm going to do it anyways. Your breathing should look like this. Your exhalation should be longer than your inhalation, and over time, it should get a little easier. Might feel a little uncomfortable doing it slowly at first, but as you continue doing it, it'll become very natural. Stand in the sunshine and feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, or the rain. If it's a warm rain or cold rain, I guess, if you're into that. Drink water. It seems so simple, but our bodies always need more water. Unless you're drinking these max water jugs a day, you're probably not getting as much as you need. So take a few sips here and there when you're thinking about it. Find 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And this is a common grounding exercise. We'll talk about grounding in a second. But it really helps you just focus on the here and now rather than all of the chaos that might be going on around you or in your brain. It really hones that in. So grounding basically means to bring your focus to what's happening to you physically, either in your body or in your surroundings, instead of being trapped by the thoughts in your mind that are causing you to feel anxious or stressed. To help center yourself, you can put your hands in a bowl of water. Focus on the water's temperature and how it feels on your fingertips, palms, the back of your hands. Does it feel the same in each part of your hand? Use warm water first, then cold. Next, try cold water first, then warm. Does it feel different to switch from cold to warm versus warm to cold? Do you have a favorite fragrance that calms you or helps you feel energized? This could be like a candle, a favorite soap, tea, spice, perfume, anything. Inhale the fragrance slowly and deeply and try to notice its qualities, like spicy, sweet, sharp, citrusy. You can also pick up or touch textured items around you. It doesn't have to be a specific fidget, but it can be this glass of water. Are the things you touch soft or hard, heavy or light, warm or cool? Focus on the texture and the color of each item. And then challenge yourself to think of specific colors such as crimson, burgundy, indigo, turquoise, instead of like simply red or blue. Savor a food or drink. Take small bites or sips of a food or beverage you enjoy, letting yourself fully taste each bite. Think about the textures on your tongue or how it tastes and the smells, the flavors that linger on your tongue. There are also some mentally grounding exercises you can try, including imagery. Picture yourself gathering up the emotions, balling them up, and then putting them into a box. Or walking, jogging, swimming, biking, running away from these painful feelings. Imagine your thoughts as a song or a TV show that you dislike, changing the channel or turning down the volume. They're still there, but you don't have to listen to them right now. We're focusing on this other stuff. So what exactly are you going to get out of prioritizing your self-care? Well, research has demonstrated that people that regularly engage in self-care practices are more secure financially. They have an enhanced sense of self and well-being overall. They have a stronger awareness of their own personal boundaries and what they're willing to tolerate from other people. There's joy and richness with their own children. Also report being more comfortable with themselves as a whole and being flexible in personal connections. Essentially, more balance equals harmony in different areas of your life. Also, research that supports an increased tolerance of others, less need for recognition, being more realistic when you're setting your goals, and being better at letting things go. Additionally, emotional regulation seems to come a little easier, as well as this overall adapted resiliency that we've been talking about and increased confidence. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. Essentially, just start making small choices that might help your self-care or overall well-being and build on that. You don't have to go out and buy any special equipment or fancy tools. Just do what you can. So at this time, I'll respond to any questions submitted in the Q&A feature on Teams. I also included my contact information here. If you would rather contact me directly, I'm happy to respond to anything there too. Right, so pulling up the questions here. My job is so demanding right now. I'm struggling with self-care. What's your advice? Well, my biggest advice would be start small. Start making small incremental changes that can eventually grow into a routine or something more established for you that would be a lot easier to deal with over time. Especially with your job, I definitely support advocating and talking with your boss if the work environment allows for that and you feel comfortable doing so, and let them know what's going on with you. Definitely try to ask for help with your coworkers that might be able to take some of the load off if it's workload that's really stressing you out. It's really hard to answer that specifically without knowing exactly what you do or what some of the stress is coming from. But take a look at that that visual that we created and see if there's anything specific within that work-related sector that you might be able to address or control on your own. And everything else, we have to adapt our mindset. Try to think positively and be happy, that we are working right now and that we have income to support our families, and yeah, why you got involved with the job in the first place. Hope that answers that question. The next question is, what do you do for self-care? Well, some of my self-care is really minuscule things. It can be simply talking with my partner at dinner about the highs and lows of my day and acknowledging the victories that I've had, but also mourning the difficult parts of my day. Hopefully, because it's the end of the day, I know that I don't have to relive today ever again, and I can move on from that after being able to talk about it. I also try to take my dog for a walk every day that it's not raining, and that seems to do wonders for my body in terms of like the endorphins and the serotonin that I was talking about, dopamine more so than serotonin, but yeah. I also just try to, take a day off every once in a while just to sit around and do whatever I need to do. Sometimes it's that unplugging that I was talking about earlier in the presentation, that I just need to be for a while. I don't need to accomplish anything all day. I just need to survive, right? And sometimes that's all I need to be able to reset. And so I try to frequently, or rather take them off every quarter or so that I know that I've got that time that I can focus on that. Trying to think any other small things that I might do. I say mantras in the shower, like I mentioned, affirmations. That's a big one. And I have some positive playlists that I use to get myself up and moving through the work week. That's about it. I try to keep a pretty positive mindset, and I find that that's pretty helpful. So, are there any other questions? Someone wrote in, I encourage self-care in my family, but I'm struggling to get everyone involved. Tips. This is a good question. It can be really hard because we try to promote this for ourselves, and sometimes our kids or our partners just aren't into it. They don't see the benefit. I try to sneak this in through like games or family outings, something that you guys can do together, especially that will make the kids excited if you're referring to children. Even things like family game nights. It seems very simple, and it can actually be a socialization opportunity or activity, but it can really just raise the joy and bring some fun into the environment. So I recommend that. Or pulling your kids along with you when you go on a walk outside or when you're taking the dog out. That might be helpful as well. Sometimes just moving allows us to talk more freer too, and so maybe you'll be able to establish a more positive emotional connection with those people. So it doesn't look like there's any other questions unless anybody's still lingering and wants to add something in. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you learned something from this and you're able to apply this to your life regardless of COVID or not. Self-care is not going to go away regardless of COVID, so please give it the attention that it deserves and start making small incremental changes in your life that eventually can lead to really big changes and a overall more positive well-being. So thanks for coming. Have a great night, guys.